Shutter speed determines how long your camera's sensor is exposed to the scene that you're trying to capture. And to us as wildlife photographers, it's extremely important understanding our shutter speed settings, because that's what's going to determine if your photos come out crisp, creative, or just bad. What's up, Safari Nation, and welcome back to another wildlife photography tutorial. I've been working on the exposure triangle series for a few weeks now, and today we're going to be chatting about shutter speed and how to use it effectively. I'm out with Hayden. He's the new addition to our guides team, and we're busy exploring the reserve and familiarizing him with the roads, but just ignore him. He's not important to the video.
I'm the taxi driver.
Imagine your shutter as a set of blinds hanging in your room. By opening and closing the blinds, you determine how much or when light comes into your room. So your shutter is basically the same thing. And by knowing how to control your shutter and allowing it to open in splits of a second, you get to determine how long your sensor is exposed to the light in the scene that you're trying to capture. What you looking at, Aiden? Yep, he wishes there's leopard up there. I doubt it. Now, when you play around with your shutter speed settings, you'll see that it's indicated by a 1 over a higher value. And that basically just means that your shutter is set to 1/50th or 1/2500th of a second. And so the faster your shutter speed, the more light you're going to need to be able to keep that shutter speed and still make sure that your shot doesn't come out underexposed or too dark. And that's where knowing how to balance your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed all together comes into play.
To learn more about balancing those settings, stay tuned for next week's video.
Oh man. Do you guys think he needs to be in all of my YouTube videos? I think he needs to be in all of my YouTube videos.
I'll bring the banter.
So what shutter speed setting should you use? Well, in most cases, especially as a beginner wildlife photographer, you're going to be looking to get very clear and crisp photos. So basically, you're going to want to keep your shutter speed setting as high as possible. The general rule of thumb is that you need a shutter speed setting at least the same number as what focal length you're shooting at. So for example, if I'm shooting at 400mm with my zoom lens, I need at least 1/400th of a second to get crisp photos and to prevent camera shake and that kind of thing from affecting the quality of my photo. That being said, there are a lot of variables to consider when deciding which shutter speed you can actually pick. Are you shooting freehand or on a tripod? Is your subject moving or sitting still? What aperture and ISO settings are you shooting with? And quite a few more. Personally, I prefer keeping my shutter speed setting around 1/1600th of a second. That just ensures that the first couple of shots that I get are usually nice and crisp, and often when there's time, then I would reevaluate my settings and change however I would need to. But as you might know, in the field, things happen pretty quickly, and especially when I'm guiding, I don't have a lot of time to play around with settings and that kind of thing. So I just want to be able to pick up my camera, snap a few shots, and hopefully get a few that are crisp, in focus, and good looking. I have a few basic questions that run through my mind when I have the time to sit and think about what shutter speed setting I should use for a specific shot. How big is my subject? How fast is my subject moving? And how much light do I have to work with? If you're photographing a slow-moving elephant in well-lit conditions, you shouldn't need anything more than 1/1000th of a second. Take that same scenario, but with the elephant standing still, you can literally half your shutter speed setting. And if you're photographing a smaller bird with a faster moving wing beat, you'll need a considerably higher shutter speed setting, something like 1,200th of a second, even 3,200th of a second. This shot of the African pipit, for example, came out quite well because my shutter speed setting was about 2,500th of a second. But looking at this shot of a southern masked weaver, you can see that the shutter speed wasn't fast enough. I managed to get the movement of the bird in focus, but because the wings move so much faster, it couldn't freeze them in motion. Playing around with your shutter speed settings will give you an idea of what settings work for what scenarios. You can snap clear, crisp shots, get artistic and creative, or just snap shots to prove that you saw a leopard on safari. Let me know in the comments below which shutter speed setting you find yourself using most. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, that really helps, and make sure you smash the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future videos. But remember, get out, enjoy nature, and don't forget your camera.